Hello and welcome back, Lady Joyful here with a video for Sasayaki Glitter. In today's video I'm going to be making a birthday card using the Baby Elly digi stamp, and I'm going to be concentrating on cast light. This digi stamp has a little candle on the top of the cake, and I am colouring the elephant as if the candle is the primary light source for this picture. So I am starting by putting down yellow in all the places where the light from the candle will be shining onto the elephant. So just everywhere that is kind of pointed towards the candle. I'm no expert on colouring, I just try to do it how I think feels right, and just kind of, I find the best way to do it is imagine in your head like how the different shapes are and how they would interact with the light from a candle. There are a few places that I've not got it right, but that's kind of the point of I think of colouring images again and again, is to practice and each time look and see where you've got it right and where you've got it wrong and what can be improved upon the next time. I think it's a learning process. So back to the colouring. After getting the yellow down, I then started moving on to my shadows. So I took my darkest grey, and the greys I'm using are Yosoo alcohol markers, and the yellows are Spectrum Noir Illustrator markers. I just don't have any grey Illustrator markers, so that's why I'm using the Yosoo. So I laid down my shadows basically in the opposite areas to the yellow areas using my darkest grey, and now I'm going in with my mid-tone. I will be using 3 greys in total, so this is the middle of the 3, and I'm using that just to extend out all the grey areas towards the light and just blend it out a bit at a time. And you can kind of correct as you go if you think something's not quite right. You can kind of adjust it a bit. So now I have my lightest grey, which is drying out a bit, so I had to fight with it a bit to blend. And I'm just going into all the areas that are still white, basically, and bringing them across into the yellow, and even going into the yellow itself a bit to help it blend with the grey. Here in particular you can see it's very dry and is not cooperating with me. Juicy markers are always much better to work with. These markers are not refillable, so I will just have to replace them, and I probably will get Spectrum Noir this time, seeing as that's what I'm using nowadays. So I'm just working along the face, and I end up actually switching to use the chisel tip, because that way I can get a bit more ink down at once, and it's quite a large area there anyway on the face, so I didn't need the bullet tip necessarily. So then I'm just refining some of the areas on the trunk, and then I'll move on to colouring the white that's left on the body and the legs, and I'm still using the chisel tip because it just seemed to have a little bit more ink than the bullet tip did. Even though it's the same ink chamber, I think the nib was just a bit better. So here I'm just making sure the yellow on the trunk is blended in as much as I want it, and on the cheek. And then I decided the inner ear looked a bit too yellow, so I'm taking my lightest grey again and just going over all yellow to kind of get back a bit and make it look like I suppose that rather than having a yellow ear, that the elephant has a grey ear with yellow light being cast on it, which is not the same thing, of course. And then I noticed I hadn't coloured the inner part of the other ear, so I'm just going back in with the same 3 shades of grey and I'm leaving a kind of high area, just a lighter area, not a candle lit area, along the centre, just to help give some shape to the air. And here again I'm just refining the cast light on the elephant. Then I used my lightest grey on the toenails, and I added a highlight to the toenails on the front leg using both my yellows. I actually think I should have put a highlight along the other toenails as well, but I didn't do that. So here I'm going back in and just brightening up the very edges of all the yellow areas, all the cast light, just to help it stand out a bit more. And at the moment it might be looking a bit weird because the elephant's on a white background currently. The cast lighting seems odd, but it makes more sense when you have it on a dark background. So if you're colouring along and if you find that you're not happy with how it looks, just bear with it until you've got the background sorted as well. So then I moved on to colouring the elephant's bow, and I decided to go with blues for the bow. I have actually made this card before, and when I did it before I believe I did green for the bow, but this time I decided I would go with blue. And I only have 2 shades of blue, so normally I would prefer to use 3 shades for my shading, and instead I'm just kind of doubling over the darkest area with my darker blue to make it as dark as possible. So in a sense you could think that the mid-tone is 1 layer of the darkest blue and the darkest tone is 2 layers, although it's not quite literally 1 and 2 layers. Anyway, so then I'm moving on to the cake, and I'm using some browns for the cake, and here you have to bear in mind that the light is coming directly from the top, so most of the shadow will be at the top, like directly below the icing. And I went with kind of a, I guess, a mid-tone brown for the cake itself, and then the icing will be a very dark chocolatey brown. I didn't show all the colouring of the cake because it was basically the same and the video is getting quite long anyway. So then I'm adding a yellow highlight onto the icing, which is done in exactly the same way as it was on the elephant, just everywhere that the light would hit. And then I will again go in and add my shadows. And here again I'm using Yosoo markers just because they are I do have some brown spectrum noirs, but these particular shades are more chocolatey, which was the look I'm going for, so I decided to use them instead. And again I put my darkest colour in first, and then my mid-tone, and then I will move on to the lightest, and I'm slowly working in towards the yellow. And here again on that icing you can see I didn't quite get the yellow perfectly. It should have gone all the way up to the edge on that icing. And I will a bit later, when I go back in with my yellow, I will kind of draw it over to the edges, but it would have worked better if I'd done it right from the start. And this, because it has that strong highlight on the icing, it does make it nice and shiny looking. And here I'm going back in with the yellow. Here you can see I'm trying to get it out to the edges and just strengthening that highlight. Then, rather than bringing any other colours in, I decided to use the same blues that I had used on the elephant's bow to colour the flowers and other little bits of decorations on the cake. I'm using the darkest blue for those, and I will use the lighter blue on the plate. The darkest, well, both blues I use to colour in the candle and the heart on the elephant's foot as well, but I believe I do that off camera. So here now I will move on to colouring the plate with the pearl blue, the lighter blue. And I do add just a touch of yellow either end to highlight it. I also later went in and added some yellow highlights on the elephant's bow. So I'm using a dark brown card base, and I've white heat embossed my sentiment onto it, and then I'm adding a circle of yellow vellum to go behind the elephant. And then I have adhered the elephant down with double-sided tape and a little glue pen on the fiddlier areas. And that completes my elephant card. I hope you liked it. If you're not yet a subscriber, you can click the button here to subscribe to both my channel and the Sasayaki Glitter YouTube channel. There's also some other videos that you might find interesting, and if you'd like to leave a comment below, we'd love to hear from you. Thanks for watching. Bye!